Our chief engineer spends most of his time in his machine shop, testing his automats over and over again.
Now, I've done some test panels. These are the end caps. And man, that looks pretty good. See if you can get the reflection. A couple boogers here and there. Because, I mean, I don't have a paint booth. See, there's some junk in it right there. But overall, I am pretty happy with that finish. I got to take these pieces out of here before we paint it. But yeah, it's, man, it's going to look awesome. For this video, all I'm going to do is spray the body of the car. Because most of the delicate spray procedures would probably pertain to this. Like the hood and the fenders are all pretty flat panels, the doors. So we'll cover flat stuff with the top of the car. Okay, so the car has been primed and blocked twice, and it's been blocked down to 400 grit. And well, I did like a red Scotch-Brite, what they say is like 3 something, and then also with 400 in places like the roof, and then like a worn out piece of 220, which left like no sand scratches compared to like 400. Anyways, this is ready to go. We are ready to put paint on it. Okay, now one thing that was different about the paint that I mentioned earlier about when we're spraying and we're overlapping 50%, that paint, that TCP brand paint recommends a 75% overlap and 2 to 3 coats. So we're gonna stick with what they say, 2 to 3 coats, and they say a 5 to 10 minute flash time. Now what that means is we lay one coat down with a 75% overlap, so we'll spray here, and then you'll take your whole fan pattern and you'll overlap 75%, so you'll move down 25%, and then you continue to cover your panel like that. It gives you good even coverage. So we'll do that, we'll let it flash for like 7 minutes or so, and then we'll spray another coat. I'm gonna try and do 3, maybe 4 coats. It recommends 2 to 3 coats. That is not a maximum, that is a minimum. One thing to keep in mind is when you keep spraying more and more coats, you're loading that paint up, and that paint is getting heavy, and if it's on a vertical surface, it will start to run and make drips and things of that nature. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're spraying lots and lots of paint. Okay, there's another thing to keep in mind when we are spraying paint that's more important when we are spraying paint than when we are spraying primer, and that is gun technique. Now, like I said, I am not a professional at this, but I want to talk about some things that will make this a better outcome. Okay, so say, for instance, we're shooting this panel. What you want to keep in mind is that you want the relationship of the gun to the panel to be as like perpendicular or flat to it as you can. I guess it would be parallel, not. You want it flat against it. So what I'm saying is if your panel's flat, don't kick your gun up like this, and don't kick your gun down like that when you're trying to paint your panel. And the reason we want that is because if we have our gun kicked up, what you're doing is the bottom of your fan pattern is closer to your panel than the top. So you're getting an uneven amount of paint applied to the panel. And really, that's not a bad thing until that bottom part of the fan starts to run, because you've loaded that bottom part of the fan. Because this is closer together, that the paint drops aren't going to be as atomized when it hits this part of the panel, so you're more likely to end up with a run in that scenario. So that's one tip, is make sure your gun is like flat against that panel, not like this, not like that. Another thing that I was told that has been really helpful to me is if you see some people shooting guns or shooting paint, you'll see that a lot of the times they'll come to the end of the panel and they'll whip their gun like this. Don't do that. Because remember, when we were talking about loading up because your spray pattern goes up or down, it's going to be the same thing. As soon as you do that, what you're doing is you have all that air pressure and paint coming to the end there, and then what you're doing is as you load that up, you are loading that area. As the fan pattern goes to the left and you're not carrying the gun left, you're going to end up loading that area of paint, and then it's going to be dry. So what you want to do is just have a nice even stroke across the panel, keeping the gun flat, keeping it flat until you clear the panel. Boom, let off the trigger. Can you see it? Let off the trigger and then go wherever you need to. So what you want to avoid is this kind of shit. You see guys doing that? Don't do that. Just keep it flat. And then boom, come off the panel. Boom, come off the panel. You're down on the trigger. Clear the panel off the trigger. On the trigger, over the panel. Clear the panel off the trigger. Don't get fancy with it, is what I'm saying. Again, keep in mind, I'm not a professional. I've painted a couple cars, but you do it a couple times and you start to notice things that are helpful and things that kind of screw you up. And gun technique is definitely one that can screw you up pretty quick and in a hurry. Just take your time with it. Don't get fancy with it. Watch a lot of techniques. There's a lot of good guys. There's like DIY Auto School. This is an old school dude who does primarily older cars. A lot of really great information from him. So check these things out. Learn some more gun technique before you go shooting your cars. And just take your time with it. Take your time. Okay, I'm a little nervous. We're going to put some color on this car. Remember, just like in the primer video, we're going to start at the roof. And we are going to hit the center and we're going to bring it back. Hit the center and bring it back, bring it back, bring it back. And then we're going to work down our panel. We're going to go around the other side, pick up that line from the center, and then work it that way, and then down the side. That way we don't have we're not working up against a wet painted surface. But before we do that, I've cleaned this car. I'm going to go over the tape one more time. I've got a couple areas I need to adjust. Can you see that? Right there, this is coming down. I got to get back behind there with another piece of tape, fix that up, tape that hole. And then we're going to go over the entire car with a tack cloth. These are tack cloths or cheesecloths, you might hear them called. And basically it's like a beeswax impregnated really loose cotton fiber. And you don't push on them hard. You just leave them like kind of let them glide over the surface, and it picks up all this lint and debris and dust off the surface of the paint. Okay, so when you open this, you'll feel it feels kind of waxy, and it is waxy. It has beeswax in it, or maybe some other, yeah, it's beeswax. Now remember, our car is sanded down, so we have open pores in the primer. We don't want to push this stuff into the paint or the primer. The purpose here is just to collect the crap that's sitting on top of the primer. Okay, here I've got TCP mixing cups. Now these are cool because they say the mixing ratio on them. So just like our primer was 4:1, so is our paint. So what that means is we're going to come over here to the 4:1, and how many ever quarts we want to shoot, we'll fill it up to that. Say we'll do 4. I think these are quarts. Ounces. Those are ounces. We'll do 4 ounces. And then, is that ounces? Can't be ounces. 4 units of measurement. We'll do 4 units of measurement. And then, so you'll come up to 4, and then you'll fill your hardener or your activator to 4. Now, if you want to thin it, you can do it thinner than 1 part. I shot those end caps thinner than 1 part, and it started to run off the edges, so I'm not going to thin this stuff as much. I'm going to add a little bit of thinner, but nothing like I did before. So let's mix this up. Oh, I need my paper towel. Recommend having an area you don't mind destroying. This is my metal workbench, and I'll probably just sand it off when I'm done, but it's destroyed. All right, make sure your paint is good and mixed. Got a mixing stick here. Okay, 4 parts. So when I pour from a can, I use a towel around the outside of it, just like on the edge, because when I pour it over, I can wipe it up right away. They didn't really work for me there. I got paint everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Boy. This is a fucking job. My gosh. What a disaster. Wear gloves also. Gloves are good. Okay, total mess. But we got our paint in the cup up to 3. We need more paint. Let's pour some more paint. Let's put some gloves on. Should probably be step 1. But I'm so excited. I'm so scared. Okay. Yeah, the professionals do this, and they make it look so seamless. Like, those guys are so good. Okay, under our 4-to-1, you see we're just a little bit above the 5. So when it comes to our activator, we're gonna come over here to 5 and go about that same amount above the 5. Then I'm going to reduce it a little bit so it sprays easier. We'll start right there. Okay, for paint guns, I'm using, or for the paint system, the refill kits, I'm using this Spectrum Universal stuff from Harbor Freight, keeping that price down. But these are actually really good. I've been really impressed with it. So they come with these little caps so you can like save it for later if you want, like if you don't shoot the whole thing. Anyways, it's a little liner that goes inside the cup there, and then you fill it. Of course, you're gonna wanna filter it out, and then you fill that up, and then you snap this on there, and that hooks to the gun, and it's so easy to clean up. Oh, almost forgot my ring. No leaks. This is so cool. Now I'm gonna say it's not perfect. There will be a substantial amount of color sanding involved. it didn't go down as smooth as I'd like in some areas. In some areas, it went down really great. So, like I said, I'm not a professional at it, but that's the beauty of a single stage paint is, hey, we're not painters, right? So we can fix this. Once it dries and hardens and cures and everything, we will come back through, color sand everything, and that's actually the next video. We're going to color sand, cut and buff this thing. But what you want to really make sure in this stage of the game is that you're putting enough paint on the panel so that you got something to work with in the future. One side of the car looks really good. The other side of the car has a fair amount of runs in it. And it's, of course, it's my fault. But like I mentioned earlier, inside is really all you need to do. Like, I expected that to happen because I'm not a car painter. But what you need to do, and why I chose the single stage paint, is because you can get that out. And make sure you apply enough paint to the panel that you can color sand all that stuff out. So there's about 3 coats on the car right now. And I'm going to try and color sand those runs out. I'm going to let the paint harden up for a couple days, and I'll try and color sand the runs out. But really, if you remember, I said that like painting, like squirting the car, it's the quickest, easiest part of this whole deal. And that's why this video is the shortest of all of them, is because there's really nothing to paint in the car. You're squirting it on there. And, you know, I'm not a car painter. I'm not really good at this. So I can't share a whole bunch of like techniques and stuff to really make it lay down super smooth and settings on there. I don't know. I really don't know. But I know that if you put enough on there and you have problems, you can color sand that junk out. And I learned that on the Falcon. So no harm, no foul on the runs. And that's gonna be the next video. I'm gonna show you what all that stuff looks like for color sanding out all the runs and everything. So we got the body in color. We just got some more panels to do, and this car's gonna be back together pretty quickly. But anyways, stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for coming around.